Mid-April astrology is all about shifting timelines aggressively. The struggle for dominance and reconciling conflict is very much going to be the flavor, as we have Mars entering Leo April 18th, and by April 26th we will have a profected opposition with Pluto in Aquarius at 3 degrees. The full moon in Libra, by the way, as well, kind of was the centerpiece that is allowing mid-April to become the very powerful, forceful, aggressive spring that we have all been waiting for as astrologers. Now, in our own life, of course, let me back up 1 second. The world obviously needs no words on what is happening in many, many different dimensions, whether you're for what's happening in the world right now or whether you think what's going on is scary. Because all of this fast-moving, transformative, aggressive astrology for change is, very, very alive and well. Kind of scary for a lot of different types of people out there. And of course, for people who want such fast-paced, aggressive change, this is the best thing since sliced bread. In our own life, this is going to look drastically different because we are all playing our own parts in our own movies. There's a lot of ups and downs that we all face all the time. And this type of aggressive energy we can use for our benefit, transformation, growth, etc. Just like all of astrology can be used for that. In my view, all of astrology is an evolutionary process of growth and change and evolution of soul and spirit. No matter how you look at astrology, whether from a very scientific view where you want to leave spirituality off to the side, because yes, there's astrologers who don't even want to touch spirituality, guys. I know they're out there. They're very psychological in nature. And then there are the spiritual folks and the mystics and the seers, such as myself, where we look at everything from a very mystical soul evolutionary process. Even though I'm technically maybe more of an ancient astrologer practicing the traditional methods, the evolutionary spiritual process of astrology is very real. But regardless if you are a psychological this or a spiritual that, evolution is the name of the game here. And we are all going through massive evolutionary shifts right now in this moment in time. And when we have massive activations with planets that are symbolic for their fiery shamanic nature, Mars, Pluto, Aries, this stuff is going to allow us for very rapid growth in things in our life, right? And it really just all depends on what your karma is and what is going on in your life. That is why I constantly ask you, what is the Aries part of your life? Always share that stuff with me. I love reading it. Where is Aquarius for you? Because that's where Pluto is beginning its 20-year cycle. And when we have massive activations with planets such as Mars, we are talking about shocks to the system. I'm just sort of getting a vision of when the paramedics have to do the heart shock thing, whatever those are called, the defibrillators or something. I'm not even saying that right. But when Mars goes opposite Pluto or Mars makes a square to Pluto, that's the kind of shit we're talking about. And on the world stage, this is why it's going to be so incredible to see what unfolds. Because whether we like what we see on the world stage or not, the astrology is lining up perfectly. Okay? We're never going to know the details of how things manifest, but when they start to manifest, it's like, oh my God, this is incredible. This is crazy. And it kind of even gives you a little bit of hope that, okay, well, even through challenging astrology, there's always a beautiful aspect that can come down the line to, again, reconcile conflict. And that's why that's kind of my themes for this mid-month. It's the struggle for dominance and reconciling conflict. And that includes ourselves. That includes the world. Now, I don't really have many nice things to say about the world, honestly. And I've been doing a lot of delineating over the last couple of months regarding certain things going on in the world. And all of it's coming true. Not to go too far off topic, guys, because I really want to dive into the fact that Mercury's entering Aries and conjoining Neptune April 16th. I want to dive into April 18th and talk about Mars entering Leo and how that is going to be slowly building that opposition until April 26th, where it will perfect that opposition. I want to talk about the Decans involved here. This is the first Decan of Leo, the first Decan of Aquarius. I want to talk about how they are both extremely similar in vibration as far as conflict, challenge, and how we can handle that, and also how that could be playing out on the world stage. But guys, everything we've been talking here on the channel has been manifesting, whether you like it or not. Because I know a lot of people, when I talk a little politically, quote unquote, get a little triggered. But from the Virgo eclipse, right, from the Decan and the tarot associations involved with that transit, we were dealing with the 10 of Pentacles energy for that third decan of Virgo. And I said, even then, we're going to be dealing with a lot of stuff involving wealth over the next couple of years. We are seeing nothing but people losing their wealth right now. We are seeing nothing but people gaining massive amounts of wealth, because don't get it twisted, there are people definitely shorting the stock market right now. And that is exactly how people with tons of money get more money and impose more control over the people. And now with this Taurus new moon coming at the end of the month, which is something we'll probably talk about in another video, but that decan is very much associated with the 5 of Pentacles, which is much associated with poverty and having like scarcity, abandonment, like having things taken away from us, you know? So there is an element of a lot of people that will be in a financial collapse. There's going to be a lot of things that involve isolationism even. So a lot of countries are battling for themselves right now. So again, I'm not getting into the world stuff. I'm going to really try my best, guys. And I know a lot of you kind of poke fun at me sometimes when I say I'm not going to talk about the world stuff. And then there I go 10 minutes later talking about the world. But again, it's so hard to avoid like things going on in the world. Like things are just so obvious and important to talk about. But regardless, if we are talking about the world or ourselves, this shifting timelines aggressively is exactly what we will see, what we are seeing. And the Decans and the tarot associations with the Decans, which is, you know, a large part of my work, as many of you guys know, very much paint a very detailed picture of what is happening and what will happen pretty soon. Okay. But I am very hopeful over the next couple of years, because there is this inspiring astrology that will help guide us through whatever mess we find ourselves in now. Okay. And I'm not even talking about politics solely. Okay. Because I feel everybody on all sides of the aisle are going to feel the repercussions of global world order shifts, whether this is inspiring to some or not inspiring to other people. The world is changing and shifting. That is part of the human story, whether we like it or not. And the point and the focus should be, well, how do we handle this? How do we reconcile conflict? How do we continue to navigate ourselves aggressively in this time? Because this is not a time to sit around. This is not a time to meditate on the hill. Okay, maybe for some of you it is, I guess, maybe depending on certain things in your chart. But for most of us, we are going to be radically altering timelines. And this is really when March is finally over. And I've been saying this since the full moon video. I said once Mercury goes direct, once Venus gets going direct, and once the full moon in Libra happens, we are very much in a point in time where we're past eclipse season now, and we are moving into Aries territory. This is when everything starts heading towards Aries, and this is when we get closer and closer to Saturn's ingress into Aries. But Mercury is the first planet to get back to Aries. That's April 16th, a couple of days before when Mars enters Leo. So we have Mars back in a fire sign. We have Mercury back in a fire sign. We will have Venus back in a fire sign within another week or so, right? Another week and a half. And then Saturn will shortly follow in about a month. Then we will have nothing in Pisces until Saturn and Neptune retrograde back in the fall, which means that Pisces can be left to its own devices now. We're going to have to sit with the karma of Pisces, whatever the Pisces part of your life is. You know, and if you want to share any lessons that you feel you've been learning throughout the retrograde cycle in Pisces, like I've been very open and honest with you guys about the 5th house for Pisces for me has been very much a creative one involving self-expression, one involving content creation. Of course, I've had a really good winter with growing my YouTube channel here, thanks to all you beautiful souls. And if you are new, please subscribe to the channel. But, you know, and then there's also a lot of other themes going on in the 5th house for me that I've been very much not struggling with, but just very much like kind of navigating in a very, very personal way. But a lot of my transits have a lot to do with my evolution as an astrologer. And of course, I hate the words content creator, but I mean, I do make content and I do have a platform to share my work. So, I've been dealing with a lot of ups and downs and going sideways and then back up and down and then moving forward and trying my best to gauge reality, and how the reality of my life is currently looking, involving creative things. And I just want to know, of course, what is going on with you guys, if you're willing to share. But that all being said, guys, I mean, these are challenges this month that will only make us stronger, and they're going to be they're only going to last so long. I think, the Mars opposite Pluto stuff is very, very strong, but it's very, very needed for us to transform, obviously, in a very powerful way. And then, of course, to have something, a planet aspect, Aquarius, in a very powerful way, because we really have not had much wild activations with Pluto. Aside now, Neptune is now sextiling Pluto, but this is one of the first big awakenings. Okay, this is going to be a big, okay, well, the Leo part of my life is about to get awakened again. Because the last time Mars was in Leo was right before the US election. When Mars entered Leo, but the last time Mars was in Leo was January 5th. So that was one of our last big oppositions, was right before January 6th of all days. But right after the new year, that's when we very much were seeing these powerful Mars opposite Pluto stories starting to get activated. So you guys might have been feeling that. And I think in maybe my January forecast, I talked about that. And I think I asked you guys, hey, do you remember what Mars opposite Pluto was doing for you guys then? Because maybe check in with that energy. What was going on there? Something might get reactivated, of course, but we're talking about the configurations now to Aquarius. And this is where this story is going to be a little bit more, it's going to be different, because we just sort of had a very brief taste of what Mars opposite Pluto in Aquarius was towards the end of December, right around that Christmas time into New Year's. So this is really important, guys, to kind of realize, okay, maybe what was going on during that time, but also really check in, obviously, what is going on now, because this is what we are going to have to work through. This is the kind of power we're going to have to deal with. And for a lot of us, I think we can meditate into this power and we can find where we can use it to our benefit, because I certainly know where I can use it to my benefit, even though the turbulence is quite intense. I cannot lie to you. But that all being said, my friends, before I go any further, I just want to say that if you are enjoying this video thus far and you are new to the channel, I would love if you could consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, hitting that notification bell. All of that stuff really helps the channel's growth here, guys, and I could not be more honored that so many are subscribing and joining this community here. It really means the world to me to build, to have so many of you help me build such a really beautiful online space for us all to participate and muse on astrology. And so I mean, again, I really can't thank all of you enough for all of your support of my work. And for those of you who are new, my name is Joe Theodore. I'm a consulting astrologer and teacher of astrology and various other esoteric things. And I do hope that anything I provide here can be providing you insight on your journey in astrology and self-development, spiritual development, whatever you're here for. As far as other announcements, guys, I really don't have much else to share except that I'm working really hard behind the scenes on figuring out how I can be offering some classes and courses in the future. I do have a Patreon, which you can access down below in the description box if you would like to go sign up over there. And of course, if you would like to book a 90-minute Zoom reading with me, I have spots now open in May. April is all booked up. So go head over to my website and get yourself all booked up for a 90-minute Zoom reading, which we record and you can keep forever. And readings have been super powerful lately. So I would love to meet you, of course. All right, my friends. Well, let's get into what this mid-April stuff really is all about, if I did not go on enough already. So coming off of this full moon in Libra, which was really this moment where resting, meditating, and integrating everything we've been going through over the last couple of months, to be honest, throughout all of the retrograde chaos, because really that's honestly what all of the winter has been all about. It has been dealing with this retrograde process. It has been dealing with, what are we actually desiring in this life? What do we actually need to change? What is in review? What has been blocked? What needs to be restructured? Okay. Retrogrades are always trying to get us to take a moment to see things as clear as we possibly can while navigating confusion. Things can very much be put on pause. And as far as Mars being retrograde for so long, the emotional frustration and confusion, Mercury being retrograde for the last month, dealing with any sort of communication issues, Venus being retrograde for some time, dealing with these blocks and delays and reviews involving pleasure and things that bring harmony into our lives. So all of that stuff is kind of being stopped as of this full moon. Okay, so that full moon was very important. And if you're watching this before the full moon happens, then, that's awesome. But, and definitely go watch my full moon video. But, the full moon is what triggers Venus going direct, right? And everything is really moving forward from that full moon, which is why this is when the winter is truly over, as far as the feelings of being stagnated and stuck. And yes, we may still be struggling with some confusion and delusion and trying to figure out certain things, but that's only because Pisces is still so very activated, with Saturn still, of course, and the aspects that have been going to Saturn from other planets like Mars trining late degrees of Pisces and Uranus offering aspects to Pisces. But Venus going direct at that full moon, Mercury heading into Aries just a couple of days after that full moon. I believe it's 4, 5, 6 days after the full moon, we have Mercury enter Aries. So this is when things are moving forward and things are aggressively moving back towards Aries. And this is when Saturn is moving towards Aries within a month. So everything is just laser beaming and focused on getting back to Aries. And this is at the same time when Mars gets back into a fire sign. Mars in a fire sign is aggressive. I do not need to explain to you why that is. Mars, ruler of Aries, Mars, ruler of Scorpio in ancient astrology. We are talking about very aggressive, transformative, powerful, conflicting energy, but energy that can bring us passion and vigor and the motivation to get things done. Mars in Leo is going to be fantastic for, I think, a lot of us, especially if you have Mars placements or anything that is aspecting, or if anyone that has Leo placements and any other planets that are aspecting Leo, Mars will be able to bring you, I think, even more of the pep in your step that can only be beneficial into your life, of course. Unless you have some negative, challenging aspects, then yes, and yes, there could be some, evolutionary challenges, of course. But for the most part, getting out of Cancer is a big deal, guys. And yes, we still have 6 degrees of an integration phase in Leo for all of us. So we are still going to play out some karma in those first 6 degrees that we already traveled over throughout the month of December. So what was going on in December for you? Okay, because some of that energy is going to be alive and well as Mars gets back there, starting April 18th. And this will begin to build that powerful intensity towards a perfected opposition with Pluto. So the Leo parts of our lives and the Aquarius parts of our lives are going to be very, very important, obviously for the next 20 years, because as Pluto transits Aquarius, anything going on in Leo is going to be very, very greatly affected by the shamanic transformative force of death and rebirth, Pluto. So This is going to be a massive moment for all of us as we get Mars back into a fire sign. And as Mars gets into Leo, it will be trining Aries. So we're done with these Mars squares from Cancer to Aries, and we are now entering territory for the next couple of weeks into May, where Mars will be providing trines, which to me, that harmonious flow of element to element, Aries to Leo, fire to fire, is an engulfment of power and flame and passion and aggressiveness. And this is why the title of this video, I believe, is Shifting Timelines Aggressively, because we are aggressively shifting everything that we have been used to over the last couple of months. This is incredible energy, guys. Intensity builds is something I have in my notes. Now, the Mars integration phase is over May 4th. So when Mars gets to 6-7 degrees by May 4th, the profections to Pluto, the opposition to Pluto will be over, but still very much influence. And I would argue that Pluto will influence Mars the entire time in Leo, because just based upon aspects by sign, Pluto is always going to be influencing whatever other zodiac signs it's aspecting, especially when there's transits there. It is just the way astrology works, in my view. We have strong aspects from planet to planets based on degree orbs, and then we have aspects, in my opinion, based upon just the fact that they're in signs and they're aspecting each other by sign. So Mars will leave Leo June 17th. And this is going to be many weeks after Saturn has already entered Aries. And this is going to be very powerful for the influence of Pluto by opposition still throughout all of May into almost half of June. Then Mars gets into Virgo. But the integration phase of this Mars retrograde cycle, which is really what I kind of want to focus on more right now, because of the stories we've been living and the Mars retrograde experiences we've been having, please share with me what Mars retrograde stories and events and lessons you have learned. Okay, so what has Mars taught you from December, January, February, and then as the retrograde cycle happened, February, March into April, right? As we've been integrating now. So I mean, I could tell you for myself, Mars retrograde in Cancer, my 9th house, has been very much asking me, how can I become a better educator? What do I need to learn? And how do I approach my learning and wisdom seeking to become a better teacher, for example, to become a better educator of some kind? How do I take action on becoming a better teacher? Because that's something that I feel very, very passionate about, is becoming a teacher. And I've been obviously a teacher for some time with astrology and stuff, just by being an astrologer and helping people for so long. You are teaching as you are guiding, but to very much like structure, like how can I go about making classes and stuff and courses down the line? Like this is stuff that I feel called to do, to very much help people learn things in a very, very serious and deep way. But it's been a frustrating couple of months trying to figure out, like, I don't know, can I do this? Imposter syndrome, like not believing in myself at times. And this is an ongoing battle. So this integration phase that we've been dealing with will end May 4th. And we are going to feel massive polarization and this struggle for dominance in many cases. Again, we want to be dominant. We want to be power filled. We want to feel the power and we want to transform with this power, because power is nothing but transformation, and we should not be scared of power. Power for ourselves, power for what we want to achieve and transform in this lifetime, especially wherever Leo is and where Aquarius is in your life. So, and to reconcile conflict here, that is also really, really important to understand. Reconciling conflict is also very, it's very much a part of this story with this Mars-Pluto opposition, with this integration phase. Mars in Cancer very much is emotionally conflicting for a lot of us. I'm sure you've had your emotional breakdowns. I'm sure you've had your moments where you feel you just have felt energetically drained in that part of your life. So dealing with conflict, inner conflict, outer conflict, this is all wrapping up right now. And on the world stage, we're going to see things probably fall out even more aggressively. We are probably going to see things get a lot crazier. Okay? A lot of people are going to get hurt financially, and a lot of other potentials here, which I'm not going to get into. But Mars opposite Pluto is no joke. Integration phase back into Leo, no joke. Okay? This is fire sign territory. This is aggressive. And there is a struggle for dominance from certain political parties in this world. Okay. And some would argue all political parties it's a struggle for dominance. But sometimes when we look at history, and definitely where the outer planets are now, we can see how there are some potential worrisome potentials on the horizon. And maybe in another video, I'll get more into that, because I know some of you guys like when I talk about the world stuff and what the outer planets are doing involving that. But, back to this reconciling of conflict and struggle for dominance. The first decan of Leo is ruled by Saturn, and the Five of Wands tarot card is the minor arcana card associated with this decan. And, this first decan is very much, it is conflicting. The Five of Wands tarot card is a bunch of people like pretty much running around with sticks and smacking each other. And, it almost seems like everybody's trying to do something and no one can kind of get in harmony. It is harmony. The five suits in the tarot are really all about instability and imbalances. All of the fives. The Five of Pentacles, again, we're dealing with the imbalance of material goods, that poverty, that struggle within the material realm. That Five of Cups, we're dealing with that feeling of just loss and just like feeling emotionally drained and just not, just emotionally depleted, emotionally ungrounded and unstable. And, and when we deal with the Five of Swords too, which is really what the first decan of Aquarius is all about, which is opposite, right? This Leo 1 decan, the first decan of Leo, that's all about conflict, really. Like just this struggle for conflict, this, just again, like defeat, just conflict between two parties and just this inner conflict of like instability. But this also is very in the mind, right? Because the swords are all about, how we think and the intellectual nature of life. So so with Leo, Five of Wands, we're dealing with this passion and aggression of instability. And with the swords, we are dealing more with like how this is affecting our mental states, how this is affecting how we operate, and how we are inputting information through our psyche in a certain way. So the first decan of Leo, though, ruled by Saturn, this is, Saturn wants structure and stability. Saturn wants mature things to manifest, right? Saturn wants to put us through hard lessons. And in this particular decan, when we are in Leo, this can very much be kind of like, just sort of like a battle for, okay, well, I want to come into this world and I want to provide with passion. I want to very much manifest, I want to have boldness here. But for some reason, Saturn wants to kind of take things very seriously. So this is a very serious moment for Mars. A very serious moment for Mars. And this struggle for dominance is very much tied to the Five of Wands. This conflict or competition is very much tied to the Five of Wands tarot associated with this decan. Unresolved issues can also be tied to this decan, okay? And we want to be courageous here. We want to take actions, okay? And this is going to be a part of this power dynamic, in my opinion. And the first decan of Aquarius, ruled by Venus, okay, we are This is a powerful symbol for me of like, okay, well, harmony wants to be here. There wants to be harmony here. But we're in a Saturn ruled zodiac sign. And Saturn wants to, again, like that first decan of Leo, which is ruled by Saturn, we are dealing with kind of a restriction. So there is a restriction on harmony here in this first decan, in my opinion. Okay, there is a depression of harmony. And having Pluto there is obviously very, very telling for what we are seeing on the world stage. Of course, there is this lack of harmony within the world, within the collective consciousness, generally speaking. A lot of people are still fighting over ideological things, and there's a very big lack of harmony. Okay, and Pluto is here for all of us, and in our own life, in Aquarius, of course. There probably is a lack of harmony in these first degrees of Pluto, because Pluto enters zodiac signs, and very much, regardless if a decan is good or not, quote unquote good, it is going to cause turbulence, because it is just starting a massive evolutionary cycle of change and transformation and death and rebirth. So that is always messy, and it is always messiest in the beginning degrees of its transit. But this first decan is a Five of Swords card, okay? And the Five of Swords is very much, again, all about conflict and tension. So we have two decans on opposite sides of the aisle that are very much painting a picture of conflict and tension. Okay, the fives in the tarot, the Five of Wands, Pentacles, Swords, Cups, they're all about instability, which is all conflict, right? And when you don't feel stable, there is an internal war happening within you. We have the Swords going opposite the Wands. This is air and fire, guys. This is very, very conflicting. This is very aggressive. This is why we are shifting timelines in a massive way on the collective world stage in such a profound way. This is why all astrologers have been saying, just wait till mid to late April comes, because this is really when shit's going to hit the fan. This is really when we are going to see what's happening in our lives after all of what we've been through with the retrograde cycles. And we are going to have a moment where we're like, oh, okay, this is what's going on now. This is the kind of aggression and movement that is actually starting to kick online. So, and it's also about choosing our battles, right? So we're going to have maybe moments where we have to understand, like, what battles are we actually faced with? Like, what is actually going on in my life? Is this worth fighting, or is this not worth fighting? Like, these oppositions can be very tense. So things can come up in the Aquarius and Leo parts of our lives in these early degrees and offer us conflict and struggle. And we have to recognize, like, okay, well, is this worth it or not? And I think we're going to have a lot of astrology that kind of points in that direction. I think a lot of things are going to try and trigger us in the next couple of weeks, guys. And all of this triggering has to be very closely examined, because this Mars opposite Pluto is going to be powerful and intense. And it's going to ask us, and it's going to reveal to us some very powerful truths that we need to reconcile with. We need to reconcile this conflict, because it's not going to go away so easily. And this is such an important takeaway here, that conflict and tension and reconciling this stuff and reconciling our relationship to these two parts of our lives is only going to benefit us in the end. And we need to always understand how we can reconcile conflict in our life. And when so many things are moving so fast towards Aries, and Mars is back in a fire sign until June 17th, we very much need to get comfortable with tension and conflict. But there's also so much to gain from this and to transform our consciousness and our lives from. So I think that's all I'm going to say today, guys. Because I know I rambled on a lot today. I do hope that you found this video informative. If you did and you stayed to the end, please consider liking the video, subscribing, especially if you're new, of course. And definitely leave some comments down below and let me know how some of this astrology is affecting you, or how you think it may affect you. because I would love to read that stuff. I always read the comments, guys. I read every single comment. So that all being said, guys, that's all I have for you. I hope you're all doing well, and hang in there through this very intense rest of April, and I'll see you very soon in the next video.